So what do you do with your pain? What do you do with your pain? Because we all have it in this life. This week, a broken boy in Texas split our world apart. That's what happened. It was horrible. He entered into an elementary school and murdered students and teachers. And like so many other things in life, we'll blame his parents, we'll blame his grandparents, we'll blame the system for letting him down, we'll blame manufacturers, we'll blame politicians on both sides. But what we have here is a bunch of pain. That's what we have. That's what we know for sure, is that we are in pain. And we know that hurt people, and he was a hurt person, and he was hurting people. So what do you do with your pain? Because so often I think what we say is, I can fix this. However you're going to fix it. I mean, he could have, there are other broken boys and girls like him and her who will instead, they would have turned the weapon upon themselves. They still would have tried to fix it. It still would have been a tragedy. Still, great harm would have been done. The only difference is the trajectory. It does not change the fact that there was a hurt boy who hurt people. And evil was unleashed into our world. When you see stuff like this, where was God? Where was God when that happened? Why didn't he see? Why didn't he hear? Why didn't he do something about it? Well, I think that there are several things in that line of thought. You're assuming that you know that God didn't do something, that he didn't hear, that he didn't act. And I'm just one person. And I know about the same amount of stuff about that young man's life that you know. Very few of us will ever know the full story. God knows the story. And here in this passage, what we see is that God hears the pain of three women, of two women and one man. That there are three people in pain here in this story. And God sees and hears us in our pain, and he calls on us to wait for him to heal our pain. See, that's the main difference. The key ingredient is one that we really don't like, and that's we hate waiting, don't we? I mean, in the pandemic, we've learned a lot about waiting, especially if you go to a restaurant, you have to wait. Why? Well, it really doesn't matter why. The fact of the matter is you have to wait. And in my life, I've had to wait a good bit. And some of that has not been my fault. That I've been the victim of that waiting in my life. That there has been pain that has come into my life that I did not engineer and that I did not concoct. But I was the victim in that situation. It doesn't change the remedy, however. It doesn't change the fact that I've had to wait and learn to look to God in all things. So here in this passage, I think that this passage is excellent at talking about how do we deal with pain. Let's look first at Sarah's pain, and then we'll look at Hagar's pain. So Sarah's pain is what we see in verses 1 through 6. The first bit of pain, and it just jumps off the page if you look at verse 1. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children. In our world today, there's a lot of people that deal with infertility issues. And there are experts that you can go to. Guess what? There were no experts in their world. What they thought was totally unscientific. They thought, you have sex, you have kids. That's how it works. And they didn't understand all that other stuff. What they did understand was this, however, or the way that they looked at not being able to have a child was that woman, there's a deity who is not pleased with her. For whatever reason, she did something wrong. It's her fault. And so what is Sarah trying to do in this passage? She's trying to do the same thing that young man was trying to do. She's saying, I can fix this. I can work this. I can make something happen and make my pain go away. I can get rid of all the stuff that people are saying about me. So she lets Hagar be a surrogate so that she might have a child. It's interesting, even the way that is said here in this passage. In verse 2, she says, behold now, number one, I'm going to blame God. The Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Okay. Is she right? Kind of, yeah. Is God in control of all things? Yes, he's in control of all things. So has he done? Kind of, it's not that simple, though. And then she says, go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. Actually, the word that's used when it talks about having children is that I might be lifted up, that I might be raised up, that my reputation might have a come up. That is what is being said here in the Hebrew. She's literally saying, I'm going to use another person so that I don't look so bad anymore. That's how I'm going to fix it. And in case you're wondering, is this a good thing or a bad thing? There's a huge parallel. What's going on here, it actually parallels what takes place in Genesis chapter 3. You might recognize that chapter. That's the place where Adam and Eve choose to eat the fruit. There's an exact parallel here. In fact, if you'll look up on the screen at the slide, you'll be able to see this parallel sort of structure that's taking place. See, what we see on this passage is there's a text, there's a test, there's verb number one, verb number two, and an indirect object. Okay, well, you did grammar to me. You just lost me at grammar, Bill. Grammar is so important. Grammar helps us. In Genesis chapter 3, what's the test? God is keeping something from me. He's withholding a blessing. So what, and this is to Eve, and what does Eve say? She says, oh, I can fix this. What does she do to fix it? She takes something. She takes a fruit. Then what does she do? She gives it. To whom? To her husband. Chapter 16, you have another woman. Something's being withheld from her. What does she not have? I don't have a child. Before I didn't have wisdom, now I don't have honor. That's the issue. So she takes, not just a fruit, she takes a person. She objectifies her outright. She gives her to who? Her husband. Do you see that parallel is just so extremely strong? And there's other stuff in this passage where you will see that this is what's taking place. That time and time again, what do we do with our pain? I can fix this. I can change this. I can manipulate forces in my life. Whether it's violence, whether it's withdrawing into ourselves, whether it's buying more stuff, whether it's trying to make ourselves look better in some way by the words that we use. We're always saying, I can fix this. But there are some things that we just can't fix. In fact, there are a lot of things in my life I can't fix. I can't. So what do I have to do? The right answer is to wait upon God. Does that mean that he'll give me what I want? No. But he might change me in the process. So it's not a question of, can I fix this? The question is, what really needs to be fixed? Maybe what needs to be fixed first is me. Maybe not my circumstances. Maybe not how other people look at me. Maybe what I need to do is to look to God. Well, what was the damage that's caused by the situation? Well, Hagar, she thinks that she's something now, because before it was, simply that maybe there's a problem with Abraham. Well, no, that's not the problem. The problem is with you, Sarah. You are barren. It's never been Abraham's fault. And as a result, what does Abraham want more than anything else? He wants a son. He wants an heir. He wants a way to be able to pass on his family estate. He wants to be able to pass on his stuff. He wants to be able to pass on lessons to a son who would be able to make it as if he mattered in this world and in this life. Sarah can't give it to him. Who can? Hagar. What does Hagar do? She gives her that look. That look of, yeah, you're nothing. I'm everything. And so she tries to do this with Sarah, and it doesn't go well. Not at all. And Sarah, she goes to Abraham. She says, hey, you did this. And he said, whoa, hold on. Wait. He does the man backstep thing. Whoa, hold on. Throw up the hands like this. Take a step back like this. This is what we do, right? I didn't know. No. She's your servant. Do with her as you see fit. Now, this was actually the law of that part of the world. She truly had the right to do whatever she wanted to with Hagar, because that's the way the world worked. And by the way, if you're saying, I can't understand this whole thing of using this woman as a concubine, as we have always said, hey, everybody's doing it. This was absolutely normal in their world. And there are a lot of things that they would look at our world and they say, ooh, what's wrong with you folks? And we say, hey, everybody's doing it. We always want to be able to throw up the hands and not have to take the blame for stuff. The fact of the matter is, though, that is this offering of a concubine to her husband the right thing to do? No. It's totally against God's design. Is it the right thing for this servant to basically consider her mistress as dishonorable in her eyes? No way. In fact, if you go to Proverbs chapter 30, you'll see that one of the things that is absolutely horrible, it says, under 3 things the earth trembles. Under 4, it cannot bear up. 1, a slave when he becomes a king. 2, a fool when he is filled with food. 3rd, an unloved woman when she gets a husband. And the 4th, a maidservant when she displaces her mistress. The Proverbs are saying, listen, bad stuff is going to happen. There's going to be an earthquake when these things take place. So Sarah's disappointment, her pain, what happens? It leads to Hagar's pain. Now you have a little servant girl who is pregnant. She runs off because she's being beat or whatever is going on. The text doesn't really tell us. It just says that she was mistreated. We don't know what that means. It was bad enough to go away. It was worse than normal. It was something that she said, I have to get out of here. So just as the man says, ho, hey, what does Hagar do? She runs away. Same sort of idea. It's something that's endemic in us that all of us do. So look at verse 7. This is where we start to look at Hagar's pain. See, what does Sarah do with her pain? She tries to use a person, and then she tries to inflict pain on her when she doesn't do or act the way that she thinks that she's supposed to do or act. Is this the way that we're supposed to act towards people? No. But it's really what we do. This is what we do. And then there's Hagar's pain. And who finds this young girl? I mean, she's been walking for 10 days through the desert. Who finds her? Verse 7. The angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness. Now notice, this angel of the Lord, who is the angel of the Lord? We'll talk about that in just a second. The angel of the Lord goes looking for her, sees that this is a young girl who's in pain, and the angel of the Lord seeks this girl out. And then we hear something. In verse 8, the angel of the Lord says, Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from and where are you going? Again, this connects us to Genesis chapter 3. Do you remember after they ate the fruit, what does God do? God comes into the cool of the day in the garden, and he says, Adam, where are you? Is it that God doesn't know? Is that all of a sudden he has become unomniscient? No. We know that's not the case. It is that God is seeking out Adam. And here we see that God, that's who the angel of the Lord is. The angel of the Lord is seeking this young girl out in the midst of her pain. And God always does. He seeks us through conscience. He seeks us through his word. He seeks us through the words of friends that God places in our way, of relatives and loved ones, and who knows, maybe even your enemies. He will use whatever he has to speak to you and to ask you those penetrating questions that you really don't want to answer, but you really need to answer. So, Hagar, where have you come from and where are you going? It's her fault. Sarah is totally unreasonable. God doesn't disagree with her. God doesn't say, oh, come on, it's not that bad. Does he say any of that? No, he doesn't say any of that here in this text. Here, what we hear him saying, she's saying, I'm simply fleeing. Isn't it interesting that this slave girl, she just talks to the angel like, hey, this is what's going on. I love that about her. And what does God say? The angel of the Lord also said to her, he's saying to her that you need to go back to your mistress. You need to go back to Sarah. Verse 9, return to your mistress and submit to her. Now, I want to make sure that you understand what this text is not talking about. This is not too often we think that the Bible was written directly to us. It was written to the Israelites, and we read it afterwards and we say, okay, now how can we take the principles in it and apply it into our life? Is this saying that, say, someone who's in an abusive relationship has to go back to someone who's an abuser? No, it absolutely does not say that. So I want to make sure you understand that's not what it's saying. But what God is saying is he's saying, stop saying, I can fix this by running away. It's the same thing that he's going to say to Sarah as well. He's going to say something rather painful to Sarah. And you won't see it in the text, but you'll understand it once I bring it up to you. Because there's going to be 13 years of additional teaching that God does in one word. In fact, let's continue. See what's going on here. In verse 10, he said, God makes a promise to Hagar. He says, listen, you're going to become great. Just not right now. But what am I going to do? I am going to multiply your offspring so that they cannot be numbered for multitude. Does that sound a little bit like the promise that's given to Abraham? Yes. It's not quite the same level. You're going to have lots and lots of descendants. And then he goes on to say that baby that you are carrying in your belly right now, I'm also going to bless that baby. Here's the future of your son. Behold, you are pregnant. You shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael. because the Lord has listened to your affliction. What does the name Ishmael mean? It means God hears. That's an important thing to remember. So how does she react? And by the way, he doesn't play well with others. That's what the next verse says. He's going to be a wild donkey of a man. His hand's going to be everyone against everyone. Everyone's hand is against him. He doesn't play well with others. Okay, so don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. He has some opposition defiance disorder or something going on in the ancient Near Eastern context. But he's got something bad wrong with his relationships with people. But how does she respond to this? She says, "You're a God of sin." She actually names God. This is the only place in the scriptures where a human being names God. And where God allows it. I think that it was almost like God was like, "You're hurting, I'll allow it," kind of thing. But she says of this God, she understands that he is God. He is not merely an angel with angel's wings. He is God. He is God, God, God. And she says, "Truly here, I have seen him who looks after me." There's something very beautiful in that she sees in the middle of her pain, that God still sees. And this is what you should get from this text. Does God see this invisible woman? Because in her culture, she's absolutely invisible. No one sees her. She's like the tech who was helping Jeannie yesterday. She'll slip into a hospital room and then leave, and no one sees her. Not really seeing her, not really asking, "How's your day going?" She's invisible. And so Hagar, she would slip in, slip out. God sees her, though. Well, no one can hear what bad things are happening to me. And then he says, "Here, I'm giving you a son. And he's going to remind you something about me." God hears. Yishma means hears, and El is the word for God. God hears. Now, how is this a crash course for Abram and for Sarah? Every single time Ishmael does anything, and we know he's going to be up to stuff, right? And we know this from the prophecy about him. What is going to be said? "Ishmael!" Oh, man. That's going to sting. That's going to sting for 13 years. Sarah is going to hear, God hears. Abraham is going to hear for 13 years, God hears. I hear your prayers. I know all the stuff that hurts you. Don't think that I don't hear. I hear, and I know, and I'm the only one who can actually do anything about it. So come to me. Come to me with those pains and those hurts and those worries. And it's just, and Hagar obeys. She goes back. She goes back into this place that is uncomfortable, that is not anything that any of us would want to go back to. But Hagar shows us that she understands something about God that I think a lot of us don't know. That just because something's difficult does not mean that you should not re-enter it. We want an easy way out all the time. We want to fix stuff. Or if you're me, you want to call someone who can fix stuff. That's what we want. And all of this mess could have been avoided if Sarah and Abraham would have simply waited, right? If they'd just simply waited. If they had, but the fact of the matter is that life, history, all of it is messy, isn't it? Life is messy. None of it is easy. But we shouldn't say to ourselves that God's holding out on us, because we saw that. I mean, Eve tried that before. Sarah tried that before. Are we going to try that again? Are we going to try to use that same old bothersome line that God doesn't see, God doesn't hear? See, the fact of the matter is God did see and God did hear when he sent Jesus Christ. He said, I see all of this and I'm doing something about this. I see that the world is fallen. I see that it's broken. I see that you need a redeemer, and that redeemer is Jesus Christ, and his redemption came through his blood on the cross that was shed for you and was shed for me, and that all those who trust in him, they have hope in this life and in the one to come. It's those who say, listen, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do a little bit of DIY soul repair. That's when the trouble comes along. So what will you do with your pain? Will you try to make up your own ending? Write it out yourself? Or will you wait on God and say, God, yes, I am in pain. And yes, this is real. And yes, you're the only one who can fix this.